To follow along with the written version of this pattern and download the interactive PDF, use the links on screen now, in the description below, or by going to clubcrochet.com/hermit. Hey there, it's Louie, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to crochet these adorable little hermit crabs with removable shells. This pattern is so cool for so many reasons, but the best reason is this is a new Minigurumi pattern. This is a personal challenge I've been giving myself to crochet patterns in less than 100 stitches with no sewing necessary. So this is all made in one piece without anything needed to be sewn together. You do need to sew it closed at the end, but other than that, it's all made in one little piece. In fact, you can make this in only 55 stitches. I believe it's 55 stitches total, if you count each of these limbs as a different stitch. It's so tiny, so quick to make. I love this pattern. I think it's really, really cool. It's a bit of a challenge, but it's really, really fun. And once you know how to make them, you're gonna get addicted to it, as you can tell right here. Now in this video, I'm gonna be teaching you how to make the hermit crab itself. And then in our second video, I'm gonna be teaching you how to make alternative shells, including first a little spiral shell, a little swirly shell like that. And then we're also gonna learn how to make anything into a shell for our new Club Crochet challenge. This is a new challenge we have where we're trying to make anything that we can into a hermit crab shell, and the best shells will win. We'll learn all about that in just a second, but if you want to learn all about the Club Crochet challenge, check it out at clubcrochet.com/challenge. Now this pattern is part of a series of patterns I'm doing called Sandigurumi. It's a bunch of patterns all themed around beaches and shores. We're going to be making things like seals and sand castles, other crabs, beach balls, and seagulls. You can find all those patterns at clubcrochet.com/sandy. There's a whole bunch of them, and I'm coming out with new ones all the time. Now if you would like to crochet along with me, try joining our live crochet alongs. I do live crochet along every single week. All you need to do to join those live crochet alongs is like down below and subscribe to the channel and hit the little bell icon so you don't miss when we come out with new videos. Now, a few things to go over before we get hooking. The first is that this pattern is not the most beginner friendly. If you are a complete beginner and you've never crocheted before in your life, I suggest starting with our seal pattern. It's a little bit more beginner friendly and will teach you how to crochet, or our 101 series that you can find at crocheting101.com that will take you very slowly in how to crochet. If you need extra help beyond that and the comments down below, you can also check out our Discord server, which you can find at clubcrochet.com/discord. That is going to be a great server for you to go to ask questions, get help, or just hang out with other like-minded crocheters. And then of course there's the live crochet alongs that you can join to ask questions and get extra help. I just like changing the shell that we have. I just think this pattern's so cool. Okay, if you are a left-handed or a right-handed crocheter, don't worry, I got you covered. There's a left-handed and a righty version, both linked in the description down below. And there are time codes so you can quickly jump around in this pattern. Jump straight to making the claws or making the legs or making the eyes. All those are linked in the description or in the PDF version of this pattern that you can find at clubcrochet.com/hermit. Okay, I think that's everything I want to go over. Now let's talk about all the materials that you're going to need to crochet this pattern along with me. For this pattern, we're going to be using worsted weight cotton yarn and 100% cotton. It's just my favorite kind of yarn to use, and this is actually our personal brand, Club Crochet Amigurumi Cotton, that's available in our giant deluxe kits that you can make all the things that you see on screen now with. I like using worsted weight cotton yarn, but you can use really any kind of yarn you want. All you need to do is make sure to use the right crochet hook for the yarn you're going to be using. For example, if you're using blanket yarn, you're going to need a much larger crochet hook than what we're using for this pattern, which is going to be a size G 4mm crochet hook. That's my favorite size hook to use for worsted weight cotton yarn. Outside of that, we're going to need the colors orange and a little bit of white, but you actually don't need to make your eyes white. You can make them all orange if you want to make them more look like an actual hermit crab. But if you want to, you might want a little bit of white. You also will need a third color for the shell, which we'll be going on to in our second part of this pattern. And then you'll need safety eyes. I like using anywhere between a 6 and a 10mm safety eye. So I believe this is 6. I think this is 8mm. So it gives you an idea of the different size eyes that you can make. But any kind of safety eye will work. You can also use black yarn into a little rose knot or bullion knot in place of safety eyes if you'd like to. You actually don't need any stuffing for this pattern, but you might want a darning needle with a little crimped end like this. That's just going to be for sewing it closed at the very end, but it does help to have a little edge like that at the end of it. And then outside of all that, you'll need some scissors, for cutting stuff. All right, well, that's everything you need to know to get crocheting here. If you like this video, again, please like down below and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to learn more about our Club Crochet Challenge and get a chance to win a free deluxe kit with all the materials you need to make a bunch of hermit crabs and everything you see in the background, you can find that at clubcrochet.com/challenge. All right, well, let's get hooking. Yoo-hoo! Okay, to start this pattern, we're going to start by using our amigurumi orange color. This is going to be for the body. Now, obviously, if you want to make the body a different color, you can use a different color other than orange. But we're going to start with a magic loop. Now, if you've never made the magic loop before, here is a quick tutorial. I do have a longer tutorial that I'll put up here that'll go into detail about different ways to make the magic loop and why I like the way I'm going to show you right now more than others. But this is my favorite way. You want to take the yarn facing downwards towards the ground and pinch it with your middle and thumb finger like that. Now, have the tail end here go between your ring and pinky finger just to hold it in place and keep it away from your fingers. Now you want to take this long end attached to the ball and go over your index finger and middle finger 2 times. We're looking to create an X on the front towards you and 2 parallel lines on the back away from you. Take this end attached to the ball of yarn and place it in between your ring and pinky finger with the other tail end just to hold it in place. Now with the back of your hand facing you, take your crochet hook and go under this first bar and then hook onto the second one. Pull that second one under the first one and then loop it around like that. That'll create a little loop at the end of your crochet hook. Now go over this first bar and hook onto the second one. You might need your finger to help guide the yarn over your crochet hook like that. Once it's hooked onto the hook, you want to twist it so that the hook lines up with the hole and scoop it to pull it through that loop. That's going to make what we call a chain and going to be the end of your magic loop. So now you can pull it off of your fingers. And now what's really cool about the magic loop is when you pull this tail end, it will close this loop up. So our first round of stitches is going to be worked entirely into the center of this magic loop. All right, so for round 1, we're going to start by single crocheting 6 times into the center of our magic loop. For a single crochet, if you've never made one before, all you need to do is take your crochet hook, go into the stitch. In this case, the hole itself is going to be our stitch. Go into that stitch, yarn over with the end attached to the ball, hook it under the stitch, aka the hole. Now go over the stitch and loop onto the hook again and pull that loop through the 2 loops that you have on your hook. Again, the easiest way is just twist it to line up with the holes and scoop it to make sure you get through all of the threads of the stitches. All right, that's going to be a single crochet. We want to make 6 of those for our first round of stitches, all into the magic loop. So there's 1, this will be 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right, that's going to be the end of round 1. Now, normally I would say pull a stitch marker through here, but because this pattern is so small, I actually find it's really easy just to power right through the pattern. So we're going to pull our magic loop nice and tight like that. And then we're going to start into our first stitch right here, and we're going to start round 2. For round 2 and 3, so that's 2 rounds in a row, rounds 2 and 3, we're going to just do 1 single crochet into every stitch that we made in our first round. For all of our stitches, we want to make sure that we're under both of the loops. The first stitch is always the hardest. I kind of find it's easiest to wiggle my crochet hook into that stitch, but we want to be under both of these loops for all of our stitches throughout our pattern. We want to single crochet into every stitch that we made in round 1, so there's our first one right there. And I'm going to take our tail end here and just fold it over our crochet hook like that to hide it under the stitch that we're about to do. So now I'll yarn over with the end attached to the ball here, pull it under the stitch and that extra loop. Again, notice how I twisted it and scooped it through. Now with 2 loops on the end of my hook, I'll yarn over with the end attached to the ball again and pull it through those 2 loops like that. That's going to be the end of our first stitch. We want to do 6 of those. Now that I've worked around 1 of them, I can just let that go off to the side. We don't want to cut this close. We actually want to use this eventually in our pattern, so don't cut it. All right, so we have 1 and 2, 3. We want to do 6 per round and 2 rounds of this. Here's 4. So that's going to be basically doing 12. There's 5. And this last one right here is going to be 6. Take your time. You don't have to crochet too tightly, so feel free to be loose with that. That's going to be the end of round 2. Now we want one more round of that, so we're just going to keep going around. 6 more single crochets. 1 and 2, and we're almost done here. 3, there's 4, 5, and then our very last one right there. It's going to be 6 and the end of round 3. All right, we're already halfway done with our hermit crab. I know it sounds crazy, but it's just so tiny like that. All right, for round 4, this one's going to be a little weird. We're going to be making the eyes here. So we're going to want to either use white or continue in our orange. If you make your eyes with white yarn, you'll have eyes kind of like this. You can make them different sizes. So I have, here's one that I made with using bigger eyes. We'll look at those again a little later. Or you can make them all orange. So you don't have to do a color change here. I'm going to show you how to do color change because it's a little bit more complicated, but you don't have to. You can just make it all in orange if you'd like to. Okay, and it'll look a little bit more like a real hermit crab if you do it all in orange. All right, so for round 4, we're going to start by increasing in the first 2 stitches. An increase just means that we want to do 2 single crochets into the same stitch. So we're going to start in our first one right here and do our first increase. So that just means 2 single crochets into that stitch. So there's 1, and then in the same stitch, follow that V to find it. That will be 2. All right, so there's our first increase. Now we want another increase right here, and I'm going to get that increase started just like that. But before I finish it, I'm going to grab the color of what we're going to change to. So we're going to be working in white. So I'm going to take my white yarn here, and while I crochet this increase, I'm going to work around the white yarn to just kind of keep it in place. So this will be the first single crochet of our second increase. And then we want one more. We go into that same stitch, yarn over with orange, pull through, and we're going to pull through with orange like that. Okay, so now we've got 2 increases in a row. Next, we want to do a bump. A bump is basically a 2 double crochet bobble. I'm going to show you how to do that. It's actually not too complicated, and we're going to work it into this next stitch right here, and this is going to be what makes our eyes. Okay, so for a bump, we're going to start by taking our white yarn, or if you're making it in all orange, you don't need to change colors here, but I'm going to be taking our white yarn here. Notice how I'm holding down the tail end here just so it doesn't get pulled through. We're going to yarn over our crochet hook with white and then go into the stitch. So our next stitch is going to be right here. Make sure you work under both of those loops like that. Then yarn over with our white and pull it under the stitch like so. Now you'll have 2 loops of white and 1 of orange. We want to yarn over with our white yarn and pull through those 2 loops. 1 and 2. It's kind of easiest to do it one at a time like that. Now if you want, you can pull this tail end here and you see I'll pull that in a little bit, make it cleaner. All right, now we want to do that same thing that we just did one more time into the same stitch. So we're going to yarn over with white, go into the same exact stitch. So right here, yarn over with white again and pull it through. Then yarn over with white and pull through just 2 of those loops. 1 and 2, just 2 of them. Now you should have 3 loops on the hook, 2 in white and 1 in orange, or if they're all orange because you made it all orange. Then we want to change back over to our orange yarn. So we're going to take our orange, flip it under the white, and then yarn over with our orange yarn and twist it and scoop it through all of those stitches to finish up our bump. We're going to be using that bump again in just a moment. But between eyes, we want 1 single crochet. So we want 1 single crochet in our next stitch. We can work around this white yarn as we do this. So go into our next stitch, which is going to be right there. And we can keep our white yarn over our crochet hook as well. We want to yarn over with our orange yarn, pull it under that stitch, yarn over again, and pull through 2 with orange, 1 and 2, just like that. All right, so there's our first eye. You can kind of see it coming together there. Now we want to make another one of those eyes into the next stitch here. So it's the exact same thing. So I'll go a little quicker here. Yarn over with white, go into our next stitch, which is going to be right here. Yarn over with white again and pull it through. Then yarn over and pull through just 2 with white, 1 and 2. We're going to do that one more time. Yarn over, into the same stitch, yarn over and pull it through, then yarn over and pull through 2, 1 and 2 like that. Now we can yarn over. First I'm going to pull this orange a little tighter. See how it's a little loose right there? I'm just going to pull that a little tighter to tighten everything up. Then I'm going to switch back over to orange, yarn over with orange, and pull through all the loops, 1, 2, and 3 like that. I'm going to pull our white a little tighter. And then we're going to finish this round up by doing one more increase into the last stitch right here. We can work around our white yarn as we do that. We're going to go into this next stitch right there. And we're going to just do one increase all in orange. So we're going to yarn over with our orange, pull it through the stitch, and we're going to work around our white as we do this. So there's one single crochet, and then into the same stitch will be 2 single crochets just like that. All right, now we can cut our yarn. You don't need a very long end, about that is just fine. This is going to be not used again. And now we can continue on to our piece. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we got so far though. I'm gonna take our little tail end here of our white yarn, kind of try to stuff that in the inside of our face just to keep it away. And you kind of see how it's coming together. There's our 2 little eye holes and the body looking cute. All right, let's continue on now to round 5. Now round 5 is notoriously going to be the hardest round of this pattern, but it is also the second to last round. This is the round where we're going to make all of our little legs and our limbs. Here is how we're going to do it. We're going to start by doing the same thing 4 times, and that's going to be to create a mini picot and a single crochet. Now a mini picot is basically a little tiny point. So if you look on the bottom here, you'll see we have a variety of legs here. These little ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, those are going to be our mini picot stitches. They're just little tiny bibbidi bops. Then we're going to be making what I'm calling just a leg, which is basically a mini picot with 1 extra step. Then we're going to make a claw, then another claw, and then another leg. And then we're going to finish up with 1 last round. So these mini picots are actually very simple. All you need to do is we're going to do the same repeat 4 times in a row to start off around 5. Mini picot 1. For a mini picot, we're going to yarn over and chain 2. 1 and 2. We're going to skip that first chain and we're going to slip stitch into the second one, but we're going to try to work into that back loop on the back of our piece. Now you don't have to, you can just work into the top loop, but it looks a little cleaner if you can find that little back loop. It's kind of like the spine loop right here. And try to like pry your crochet hook into that stitch. It just makes it look a little cleaner. Once we're into that stitch, I'm going to pull my yarn a little tighter there. Yarn over, pull it through that stitch and then through the loop on the hook. And that's going to be called the mini picot. So it makes this just a little tiny point. All right, so we want 1 mini picot just like that, and then a single crochet into our next stitch. So our next stitch is going to be right here. And we want just 1 single crochet like that. We want to repeat that 4 times. So there's 1, let's do another one, mini picot 1, 1 and 2. And get into that back loop of the second chain from the hook and slip stitch 1. And then a single crochet right there. All right, that's going to be our second repeat. Okay, let's do it again. 1, 2. Find that back loop of the first chain that you made. Again, that's always a little bit hard. There is 3. And then 1 more of those. Chain 2. Back loop of that first one that you made. Slip stitch 1, and then single crochet 1 more time into this next stitch right there, and that'll finish up that repeat. We have 4 little tiny legs. Look how cute those are. Okay, now we want to work on the longer leg. For a longer leg, it's basically the same thing but with 1 extra chain. We're going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Skip our first chain and then slip stitch into the next 2 chains. Again, trying to work only into those back bumps. So we've got 1 slip stitch, just like a mini picot, but then we want 1 more slip stitch right there into the next chain also. So these are a little bit longer than our little back legs. And then we're going to single crochet into the next stitch right there. It's going to be right over the eye, just like that. All right, now is going to be where we're going to make the claws, and the claws are going to be the toughest part of this pattern. We're just going to take it 1 step at a time though. To start the claws, we're going to start with our right claw. For the right claw, we're going to chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We're going to skip our first chain and we're going to work all these into the back bumps. So we're going to skip that first back bump. You can kind of barely see it under the yarn there. And for the next 2 back bumps, we're going to do a single crochet 2 together. For single crochet 2 together, we're going to go into the next one right here. So we're skipping that first one, going into the next one. And we're going to yarn over and pull through. Then we're going to go into the next chain over. So one more chain. We're going to leave those 2 loops on the hook. Go into that next chain over right here. Like that. And we're going to yarn over and pull through. All right, so now you should have 3 loops on the hook. Now we want to yarn over and pull through all of those loops. 1, 2, and 3, like that. See, and that's going to create the little edge, the top of our claw. All right, so there's our first part. We've chained 6, we single crochet 2 together. Now we want to do another mini picot. So we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, skip that first one and slip stitch into the back bump of the second one right at the top of that claw like that. All right, see, there's our little claw. Boop, boop. All right, now we want to work back into the chains that we've got. We have 3 more. You can see them, 1, 2, 3. We want to do a single crochet in the first one and 2 slip stitches into the last 2. So 1 single crochet into this first one right here. Like that. And then a slip stitch into the next 2. So this one right here gets a slip stitch, and then this one right here. There we go. Gets a slip stitch. All right, and there's going to be our first claw. Right claw. All right, we want 2 single crochets between the claws. So we're going to go into the next stitch right here, right after the eye. We're going to do 1 single crochet there. And then another single crochet into the next one right there. All right, so there's our first claw. I always like to kind of twist it a little bit and like make it so it's like kind of bent in a little bit more. Looks pretty cute, right? All right, now for our left claw. It's a little tiny bit more complicated, but we're basically doing the same thing as we did for the right claw, just in a different iteration. So we're going to start by chaining 3. So yarn over and chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Then we're going to do a mini picot. So we want to chain 2 and slip stitch 1. So we're going to chain 2 more. So chain 3, then chain 2 more. 1, 2. Skip that first chain and slip stitch into the back loop of the second chain right there. Okay, and that's just going to create 1 little mini picot. There you go. See, and there's our little thumb point. Now we want to chain 2. So we're going to yarn over and chain 2. 1 and 2. We're going to skip that first chain and we're going to single crochet 2 together using the second chain and the top of that mini picot. So skip that first chain into the back loop of the second chain, which can be a little hard to see, but you can kind of see it right there. Get our crochet hook into that, just like that. Boop. Okay. Then we want to yarn over, pull it through that chain. And then once I pull through that first one, I also like to pull a little tighter. See how it tightened that very front loop too? So that one. And we want to yarn over or get into the back of that mini picot chain. So right here is our second chain. See right in the back of that mini picot. Yarn over and pull that one through. All right, so now you have 3 loops on the hook. Then we can yarn over again and pull through all 3 of those loops for a second single crochet 2 together. 1, 2, and 3, like that. And that's going to create our second little claw. You might want to pinch it a little bit to make it more claw-like, but there you go. All right, now to finish up this left claw, all we want to do is work into these last 3 chains, and we want to single crochet in the first and slip stitch into the next 2. So single crochet 1 into the first one right here. There we go. So 1 single crochet there, and then slip stitch into the next 2. Here's the first one. There we go. And then the last one's going to be right there. Always using my nail to help pry into that chain because it can be really difficult. All right. And there is our left claw. You can see it kind of already angles in, which is what I really like about that claw. Okay. The last parts of round 5, we want to start by single crocheting into the next one right here. So just single crochet 1 into the next, like that. Then we're going to make another one of our long legs. So we want to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, skip our first chain and slip stitch into the next 2. We're still working, oops, fix that one. Still working into those back bumps. We want to make sure we get under all the loops of that back bump and don't accidentally split our stitch. It's gonna be 1, and then one more right here. It's gonna be 2. Okay. And then to finish up round 5, all we want to do is single crochet 1 into our last stitch right there. Okay, and that's going to be the end of round 5. You should have 9 single crochets around and then 8 limbs. So our limbs are going to be these guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And our single crochets are going to be between them. They can be a little bit difficult to see, but let me show you. Here's going to be our first single crochet. We're going to work into these single crochets in this next round. So we got 1 right there, 2 would be right there, 3, 4, 5. So it's basically the stitch between the limbs. 6 and 7 are between the claws. 8 is right here, and then 9 is the one we just made. Okay, so now for our last round of our hermit crab, we're going to do round 6, working around the limbs so that they're on the outside. We're going to single crochet into every single crochet that we made in our last round. So we want to go around that limb. So the easiest way to do that is kind of just open my yarn up like that first. That's the first thing I always like to do, is make the yarn open. Then get my crochet hook into that first single crochet. We're going to skip the mini picot, get into both loops of that next single crochet there, yarn over, and pull it through that stitch. Now I poke my little mini picot over like that, and then I pull the yarn tight so that the mini picot is on the front of my yarn. And then I'll finish a single crochet like that. And that's going to make sure that that stays on the outside of our piece, so his legs are on the outside. All right, we're going to do that for every stitch around. So there's 1, here's 2, get started, and then poke it on the outside, and then pull it tight. And then yarn over and pull through 2. There's 2. There should only be 9 single crochets in this round. Okay, there's 3. Oops, there we go. 4. See how our little legs are on the outside? Get that leg on the outside. There we go. That was 5. Now we want these claws on the outside, so make sure that they're staying on the outside and get the single crochets between them. 6 and 7. Get this claw on the outside. Get into that last one right there. There's 8. And then our very last one, we want this leg on the outside and get that single crochet on the other side of the leg. Pull nice and tight and finish that last single crochet. Okay, there's the crochet portion of our hermit crab done. Let's cut the yarn. You don't need a very long end. You just need this to sew it closed, so that should be good. And we're just gonna pull that all the way out. Okay, now before we completely finish this up, let's add the face of our hermit crab. Now the easiest thing to do is just add our eyes into where the eyes go. And we're just gonna use 6mm eyes for this video, just because it makes it a little bit cleaner. The smaller eyes look a little nicer, but well, I shouldn't say that, because the big eyes actually do look really cute too. Here's the bigger eyes. So these are, I believe, 8, maybe even 10mm, whereas these are 6mm eyes. So you can see the difference in what that looks like. I'm torn between which one is cuter. I will say for the smaller, or for ones where you didn't add the white, here is one with 6mm, and I believe this one is 10mm eyes. So you can see the difference is pretty substantial. It looks really cute though. And here's a longer shell, which we'll learn about in our second part of our video. Okay, but let's go ahead and use just these 6mm eyes. The easiest way to add the eyes is we're going to add them in between the bumps that we made in this last round. Basically, we're going to take our crochet hook and we're going to place it in between these 2 loops right there. See, so they're in between the two. So we'll take our crochet hook here, go in between the two here, and just shove our crochet hook in there and wiggle it. And this is just creating a gap for us to put our eye in there. And then the way to get my crochet hook out is I pull it out and I scoop it out like that. And see, it just leaves a little bit of a gap, just enough for us to take the back of our eye, place it right there, and just kind of wiggle in like that. Okay, so there's one eye in. Let's do the other one right here. Like that. Here's our second eye. Placed in, and then wiggle it in. And there we go. Now we've got both our eyes in there. Now we just want to lock them on the inside. You want to fold it open like this. Place the little locking mechanism on the back of our eye. And just snap it on. Like that. And then the other one. Right here. Like that. There we go. Okay, and then the last thing we want to do before we sew it closed is we want to take this tail end and come straight through right next to the eye. We're going to use this as his little whiskers. So we're going to take one right there and then thread it on there. You could probably just use your crochet hook for this as well. Thread that onto our needle and just pull it through like that. And we want to stuff it just a little bit. You actually don't, I very rarely do I use real stuffing for this part. I usually just use extra threads of yarn, but we'll just use real stuffing for this video. We're just going to take that stuffing and we want to make sure it goes above where the eyes are. So I'm just going to use the scissors here. And I just want to really try to stuff it in there so that it's in the top of his head. There we go. So now it's up here. Okay. Now we want to just sew it closed. That's it. So we're just going to thread our needle on our yarn and sew closed. The way to sew our hermit crab closed is we want to take our needle and go under the front loop of the first stitch right here, and then out through the front loop of the next stitch like that. Oops, make sure it doesn't go around a claw like that. And we want to do that for all the stitches around. Once you get through one of them though, you can kind of just do two at a time. So we go over under the first one, out of the second one like that. Just pull that through. Out of the front, back down through the second front, 1 and 2. And we're going to finish up by coming up through the last one, just like that. And we can grab it really tight and pull it really tightly, and it should close up that hole. I want to pull it right at where the knot is there. And we're going to take this end, go straight back into the hole, and then out through the opposite stitch on the face. So you have another whisker coming through a different side. So just like that. Just going to pull that, pull it nice and tight to tighten up, and we'll pull all those little legs down. I always kind of like to pinch him out a little bit more so he's sitting a little bit more flat. And then we want to just knot these wherever we want them to end. So I usually like to take the first one here and knot it. And I try to knot it so it's about as long as a claw. Maybe about like that long. That looks good. And then we're going to try to mimic how long that knot is with our second end. Like this. I always like to hold it out like that and just kind of like knot it but hold it in place as I do so that they're about the same size. And then once those are knotted, we take our scissors, we can cut it nice and close. Nice and close. And there we go. That is going to be how to crochet an adorable little hermit crab. Look at how cute this little stinker is. Oh my god, they're so cute. Now usually I like to kind of also like pinch his claws a little bit, make them a little more pointy. Like that. There we go. Make sure the feet are right. Perfect. Okay, now I want to talk for a moment here about how to make a shell. Now I'm going to go through very detailed tutorial in our next video for how to make these two types of shells. We call this one here, this one's called the spiral shell, whereas this one's called the swirly shell. That's what I'm calling them. I'm going to show you how to make these shells specifically in our next video, but you can actually make a shell out of anything that you want. Seriously, anything. All that a shell is an unfinished crochet, so it's just not sewn closed. That's really it. You want to have it be about 9 stitches around at the end of your piece. Anywhere between 8 to 12 stitches, depending on how big your hermit crab is, will work. And then you can just simply shove it on top of their head. So I've made a whole bunch of different little ones. Here I made a little battery and just didn't finish it up, just didn't sew it closed. And then boom, it goes right on the head. Here I made a little pet rock, just didn't finish it up, didn't sew it closed, so that way he can go right on top of his head. Just really cute. I think there are so many things you can use this for. I mean, you can make giant amigurumi, just leave a hole in the bottom, and it can be a shell. So that's how you make shells for your hermit crab, so you can use pretty much anything that you want to make a shell. Here's our long shell. This is going to be a swirl with a long shell. Placed on there. You see we have a little tiny toothpick at the end there. That's because depending on how big the shell is, it can be kind of hard for it to sit upright. So the things you want to do if you're worried about them standing upright is, 1, you can put a little kickstand in the back of the shell, or 2, you can stuff your hermit crab up with like magnets or something heavy to make the hermit crab heavier than the shell is. So that way it'll sit upright a little bit better. There we go. So he sits up a little bit better. So those are going to be how to make different kinds of shells. Now, if you want to make a shell and submit a picture, we are currently doing a Club Crochet challenge for different hermit crab shells. So if you want to enter the Club Crochet challenge, you can learn more down in the description below. You can win a free seasonal kit or deluxe kit to Club Crochet. All you need to do is crochet a hermit crab and give it a shell. Whatever kind of shell you want, the most creative shell will win the challenge. If you want to learn all about it, you can go to clubcrochet.com/challenge. All right. Thank you so much for crocheting this pattern along with me. I hope you enjoyed making it. In part 2, we're going to be learning how to make shells. We're going to learn how to make a spiral shell like this and a swirly shell like that. We're also going to learn how to turn anything that we want into a shell, and how to customize our spiral shell to be more of a long shell as well. But you can learn how to make all these other shells. If you want to join the Club Crochet Challenge and make your own shell and get a chance to win a free deluxe kit, you can learn everything that you need to know at clubcrochet.com/challenge. Links are in the description down below. You can also check out our whole library of patterns at clubcrochet.com and check out our new Sandy Gurumi collection at clubcrochet.com/Sandy. Thank you so much for watching again. Pasta la pizza, and I'll see you in part 2. Yeah, there we go.